Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and I thought I would do a video talking about what I am currently using in my live production bag. I've been using this same bag now for probably the better part of a decade. It's been holding up quite well. They don't even make it anymore. It's from a company called Tamrac, which makes a lot of these types of products. And over the years, I have been refining my remote production capabilities because I try to fit everything in this bag that I need to make videos on the road. And what's been great is that the equipment I'm using is getting smaller and more efficient. And I'm doing a lot now with just a camera that I'm holding as a one-man band, the whole 9 yards from shooting and editing to uploading. So I thought I would share with you what I've been playing with and what's been working and what could be better. And we're going to get to what's in this bag in just a second, but I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, that I paid for a lot of this stuff with my own funds. Some of these things came in free of charge through manufacturers and other review programs, and I'll point out those things as we work our way through the video here. However, this is not a sponsored video. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own, and no one is reviewing or approving this before it gets uploaded. So let's get into it now, and let's see what's in my bag. All right, we're going to start off with the one thing that I can't currently get in my bag, which is the tripod. And tripods have been kind of the bane of my one-man band existence because they're often big and heavy. And I saw this one advertised on social media a while back, and I decided to buy it and see how it played out. And it actually has worked out pretty well. This is the Peak Design tripod. There are two versions of this. I went with the less expensive aluminum version. So this is a little heavier than the more expensive carbon fiber one that they have, but the specifications and its functionality are pretty much the same. The aluminum one here weighs 3 pounds, 12 ounces, or 1.7 kilograms. So it's pretty lightweight and very compact, but it actually can extend up to about 60 inches, so about 5 feet or so off the ground, which is perfect for setting up a camera for a remote shoot, just to kind of talk into it. And the height here in meters is about 1.5, and it can support 20 pounds or 9 kilograms of weight. And they've got a lot of neat things kind of packed into this. Now, I don't have the plate on here at the moment. It's on one of the cameras in the bag here. But what you got on the bottom here, if I can get it positioned correctly, is a little hook that you can use for putting weight down on it to keep it from blowing away. And inside of the little hook here, if you pull this out, you get a little smartphone mount that you can put onto the top of the tripod here without the plate, which is really handy. So it's got a lot of just neat things kind of built into it that work out well when you're in a pinch. My only gripe with the tripod so far with it, and I've had it for almost a year now, is that it requires a hex wrench to get the plate attached to the camera. And as you can see here, my hex wrench set that comes with this, it slides into this little spot here, I lost it at the NASA press site. So it's somewhere at the Kennedy Space Center now, and I'm never going to get it back again. So that was my one gripe, because the only way you can get the plate onto the camera is to screw it down with one of those hex wrenches there. But as far as tripods go, it's really handy, because I stopped carrying a tripod with me because they were so heavy and ungainly. This one is super portable, and it fits in my suitcase. So I usually put it in my checked bag and take it out with me when I head out into the field. Let's take a look now at what's in the bag now, and we'll see how I am doing some of my production work. Now, the bag, fully loaded here, weighs about 19 pounds or 8.62 kilograms. That's with everything inside. And this is a significant weight reduction over my prior efforts carrying things around for production. So things have gotten a lot lighter. Now, for a general camcorder that I use, I'm using this one. This is a Canon XA45. In full disclosure, I got this in free of charge through the Amazon Vine program a while back, and it's turned out to be a really nice camera. What I don't like about it is that even though it shoots 4K, it doesn't output 4K out its HDMI or its SDI. It only does 1080p output, so it's not good as a studio camera. But it is great for recording at 4K because, first of all, it's extremely portable, as you can see. It doesn't weigh all that much. You can see I got that tripod plate there at the bottom that I need to get a hex wrench for now to get taken apart. It also has two balanced inputs on it for this small size. It's got a great stabilizer on board. And one of the things that I like about Canon camcorders is that the autofocus on these is super fast. And that's really important when I'm one-man banding it, because when I put this on a tripod, I have the face detector on, and it follows me as I'm moving around and talking. And that's been a really nice part of why I like the Canon cameras, is just the autofocus on them. You're not going to get the kind of clarity you would get out of an SLR, where you can get a lot of bokeh and really good imagery. But for the newsy type of reporting that I do, the run and gun stuff, this is really, really good. And the battery life isn't bad on it either. Now, another thing that I do with my camera is that I have two memory card slots on here, and I use both of them. So basically what I do when I'm recording out in the field is I insert two cards, and I have the camera record to both simultaneously. So I kind of have a mini RAID on here to ensure that my footage gets recorded and backed up essentially as I'm going. So a lot of neat features on this camera. I carry two batteries with me, and I'll show you my charging strategy in a little bit. But for a larger camera, this works out really well. Now, like most consumer camcorders, you can flip the screen around so you can see it when you are having it pointed at yourself. And it's a touch screen, so you can operate some things on it that way. And then if it's too bright outside, like it was when I was in Florida for the launch of Artemis 1, you can pull out the viewfinder here and use it old school with a color viewfinder. So it just is kind of like a Swiss Army knife camera that is extremely portable and has decent enough quality for the kind of work that I do. Again, if I was a more artistic creator or somebody like a Marcus Brownlee who wants that really crispy footage, this is not going to do it for that. But if you are doing news style stuff, this works out great. Again, the only issue I've got with it is that it won't output 4K live. It only records 4K onto the memory cards. Now, this is not the only camera I use. In fact, I've been using another camera that I picked up recently a lot more these days, and it fits in this little pouch that I found it fits well in. And this is my GoPro Hero 9. I bought this right before the Hero 10 came out. And one of the things that has impressed me immensely about the GoPro is not only its image quality at 4K, but also how stable it is when it's handheld. And I've now done, I think, 2 or 3 dispatch videos where I've done nothing but use the GoPro here for collecting footage. My only issue with the GoPro right now is that it's not very good in low light situations, so it gets a little fuzzy when you don't have perfect light. The other problem with it is that if you want to get in on something closer, it doesn't have an autofocus. It has like a fixed focus length on it. So if I'm out at a trade show and somebody's demoing a small product, I'm usually grabbing my phone to collect some extra B-roll to edit in later, because the GoPro can't zoom in closer on it. And the question then becomes, why not use your phone for everything? And the reason why I don't want to use the phone for everything is that I can't see what I'm recording if I'm recording myself with the phone. And although I could use the front-facing camera on my iPhone, the rear cameras are much better quality. And I don't really have a good way of monitoring what the camera is seeing when I'm holding the camera out in front of me. And one of the things, and I'll turn it on here, that I configured my GoPro to do is to give me the full image out of the front here. So once it boots up, you'll see I've got that 16:9 aspect ratio of what the camera currently sees. So as I'm interviewing somebody or just talking, I can kind of frame my shot with that front display, which of course my phone lacks. So I would love to see a camera that does better close-up focusing. And if one exists, let me know that's as good as this GoPro is, because I would love to have something that would give me a little more options for getting in close to stuff. Now, this GoPro has what's called the media mod attached to it. And the reason why I have the media mod attached to it is because I use external microphones, which I will show you in a minute. This one has a mic on board, but it's not that great. So I've got a microphone in port over here. It also has a USB Type-C port here, and I can use this for charging and also for transferring data out. And then there's also a mini HDMI here for outputting video, but it doesn't output 4K video. It only does 1080p on the output. The other issue I have with it is that when I have it in its little thing that I use with it, I have to take the whole thing apart in order to get the battery out to swap it. That's been a big frustration of mine. So if you are looking to get the memory card out for a faster data transfer, or again, change the battery out, you've got to take the whole thing apart because there's a little screw that you have to screw into the handle here to get this thing secured. And it becomes quite a kind of a process to just get something simple like a battery swap done with the GoPro when the media mod is on. And what you have to do is, detach it from the handle that you're using, and then you have to open up the media mod here and pull the whole camera out, and then do what you need to do with the battery or memory card, and then put it back in and close it back up again. So it's a little clunky for doing basic maintenance kinds of tasks, but it is what it is. What I do like about it, though, is that it does have 2 cold shoe mounts on it, and I'll show you what I do with those in a minute. So it is a pretty nice little rig here, but it could be better. Now, the handle I'm using is something from GoPro called the Handler, and I bought this because when I first got the GoPro, we took a family trip to the Bahamas, and the kids were going to take some underwater video when they were snorkeling, and I didn't want to lose the camera in the water and have it sink. So this handle here, although it actually works really well as a handle, is also a flotation device. So if the camera falls in the water, it will float this way, and it'll keep the camera above water so you can retrieve it. And of course, it's orange here to let you know where it is. But it's really comfortable, I think, to use the camera with this. So again, just little gripes about some of the workflow issues with it, but the quality and convenience of this, especially how stable it is when handheld, has really improved, I think, my dispatch videos. And I'm getting a lot more traffic on the dispatch videos because what I used to do is go out to a place, record some footage on my phone, and then come back here and tell you what I saw. And I think people like that in-the-moment kind of reporting where I'm out here with the camera and you can actually see me walking around. It adds more authenticity to it, and the GoPro has definitely done that for me. Now, as far as charging the GoPro, I have an extra GoPro branded battery and a dual charger here that I bought recently. This was like a package deal. You can get the charger and the battery together. And this is just powered over USB-C. It doesn't charge any faster than the camera does, but it's nice just to have a thing that I can put both batteries in and get them charged up overnight or whatever for an upcoming shoot. And if I have to, I can plug it into a portable battery to keep the charge going. And of course, I could also connect the camera directly to a power source with its USB Type-C connector on there. Now, as far as memory cards are concerned, let me see if I can find my memory card holder in here. I use mostly Sandisk cards, and this is just a brand preference of mine because I've been using Sandisk cards for the better part of 20 years, and I've never had a problem. I bought my first Sandisk card, I think, in like 1998 when I had my first digital camera, and that card, believe it or not, is still working. It's a 15 megabyte card, and I store my cards in this Pelican case that is relatively waterproof and rugged. I've had it for a long time now, and what you do is just put your cards in here. It has spots in it for full-size cards and then micro SD cards. This is so old that back in the day they had the mini SD format, which was kind of in between the large ones and the little ones here. Of course, those cards are no longer made or used, but I have enough room here to hold everything. Now, the Canon camera uses the full-size cards, but my GoPro uses the smaller micro SD cards, and I always like to keep an adapter on hand so I can very easily read those cards with the computer. So Pelican case, Sandisk cards, can't go wrong with those. Now, as far as hard drives are concerned, I do like the Sandisk stuff for portability as well, and of course Sandisk is owned by WD. Now, in full disclosure, they did send me a couple of drives here that I took with me on my last trip. This is their WD Black Game Drive P40, and even though it's a game drive, it works great for video editing, so I do most of my editing on this drive, at least for this past trip. This has, looks like a terabyte of storage on it, which was adequate. The project file that I completed from the launch was about 200 gigabytes or so after everything was rendered and transcoded and everything, and it works fine. It's not a Thunderbolt drive. It maxes out on my Mac at USB 3 Gen 2 speeds at about 700 megabytes per second or so of transfer rates, but that's adequate for the kind of work that I do, but Thunderbolt drives certainly are quicker. I also brought this one with me just as a backup. This is their new SanDisk Professional that they also sent to me free of charge. This has removable NVMe blades that pop into it. Unfortunately, this also is not Thunderbolt. It is a USB drive, but they're coming out with a desktop docking station that will allow you to kind of dock these things into a Thunderbolt base unit for better performance. But still, for editing out in the field, these work fine, and I can do all of the editing for the piece and upload it without having to plug into anything on a desktop PC or any other kind of RAID array. Now, as far as audio is concerned, let me pull out a few things here. And this is probably the more expensive part of my production workflow at the moment. And the reason why it's more expensive is because it works. Now, I use a Sennheiser wireless AVX stick microphone. You can see it's a little battle damaged here. The reason why I use a handheld microphone when I'm out in the field is that I am normally in very noisy environments, and you gotta have a nice big handheld cardioid microphone to make it work. And the AVX system comes with a omnidirectional head for the mic. And what I did is actually went out and got a cardioid head, which picks up only on the top here. So even if I'm in a room that is just filled with noise, I come in nice and loud and clear. And the way this works is you basically just twist off the Omni head and put the cardioid one on top of it, and you're good to go. And if you've watched any of my dispatch videos, the majority of them are made with this microphone, and the battery life is forever on it. And this is a wireless microphone system, and I gotta tell you, I've never had interference or other issues. It is just perfect every time. You just turn it on, you pair it up, and it works. It's amazing. This is the receiving unit. It's got a little battery on here. One of the things that I like about the AVX is how easy it is to charge everything, because you don't need anything but the battery itself and a USB cable. It's got a micro USB connector here. Just plug it directly into a USB power source and it charges up. The receiver unit here can go for maybe 3 or 4 hours, I think. It's not that long, but it's long enough for my purposes, and I usually keep an extra battery on board to make sure we're always powered on the receiving end. The microphones actually go longer, and this is the microphone's battery, and it's got also a charger built right into it. So really convenient, very easy to work with. And then I also use their lavalier microphones. So right now for the studio work here, I actually have the microphone that I took with me to Florida. So I've got a mic pack here. This connects to the receiver the same way, and you can use it that way. Now, the only issue is that AVX is a 1-to-1, so if you wanted to use 2 mics, you would need 2 receivers to connect up with it. And for the GoPro, which doesn't have an XLR connector, the AVX came with an adapter cable here, which is easy to find if you break it or whatever, where you've got an XLR that you plug into the device here, and then plug the other end into the mic input on the GoPro. And then they have a cold shoe adapter here. So what I do is I slide the receiving unit into the cold shoe adapter, and then I usually put it on the side of the GoPro here, so it attaches like that and it's ready to go. Now on the Canon camera, because it has those XLR inputs, I just plug it directly in like so. And what's neat about these is that they have a feature where if you turn the camera off, it also automatically turns off the receiver to preserve battery life. But I can tell you, I've used so many different wireless microphone systems over the years, and you can't beat Sennheiser. Again, you pay more, but it works every time. And the AVX system is probably the best microphone system I have ever used, so much so that I am using it many years after I initially purchased it. I'm actually on my first set of batteries still also, so just super high quality, super rugged, and something that I can definitely recommend. Now, in full disclosure, I got one Sennheiser kit free of charge through the Amazon Vine program, and then I bought another kit because it was such a useful part of my production workflow. Now, another item here also came in through the Amazon Vine program a little while back, and I don't use this as frequently as I used to. This is a Zoom H4n Pro. And what I used to do was record my audio separately onto here and then sync it up with some of my SLR cameras. This was when I was trying to do better production quality, and I decided that I wasn't getting any more views with the higher quality image, but I was getting a lot more aggravation trying to keep everything synced up. But what I like about these recorders is that they have a number of ways to get audio in. You've got 2 microphones here on the top. You can actually adjust the pickup range on it. So right now it's set to 120 degrees, which is more omnidirectional, but you can also set it to 90 degrees, which is more of a cardioid kind of pattern where it picks up more in this range here. And these are stereo mics built right in. They sound great. In fact, The reason why I took this with me to Florida is that I discovered way back about 10 years ago on a space shuttle launch that I covered, is that if you turn the mic gain down and put this in the grass, you get an amazing recording of what the rocket sounds like in stereo. It's as close to what it really sounds like as I've heard. And so every time I go to a rocket launch, I bring this with me, throw it in the grass, record it, and then upload a video with that rocket sound. And that's what I use this for. But I think if you're a podcaster or somebody that's doing a lot of audio recording, these are really nice units, very compact, and they have a lot of additional functionality. So you got the onboard mics. You can plug in XLR here at the bottom. You can also just plug in a phono plug in there, one of those larger plugs for microphones that are not running on balanced XLR. It also works as a USB audio output as well. So it's just really kind of another Swiss Army knife kind of product. And then, of course, it runs with an SD card for recording. So a great little tool here if you are doing a lot of audio work. And Zoom's got a lot of neat products like this one, but I like this one just for its single purpose that I use it for. Now, additionally, I have another little tripod that I use out in the field. This one I got on sale a while back, a little Manfrotto. It's good as a handle, but it also becomes like a little micro tripod. And right now I've got a GoPro adapter on it that I bought for my GoPro camera, because one of the shots that I wanted to get of the night launch of Artemis 1 was just to kind of illustrate how bright it is. So what I did is I set this on the ground, actually right next to my audio recorder with the GoPro. And what I did is I locked the exposure on the GoPro to NASA's clock at the NASA press site so that we wouldn't have the camera adjust the exposure as the rocket goes up. Because I really wanted to show just how it almost becomes like a mini sun as it launches. And so to set the exposure, I didn't know you could do this on a GoPro until I looked it up. If you hold down in an area here, so you just kind of tap and then you hold it most of the time, it will let you, here it goes, it'll let you kind of mark in a exposure lock here. And then when you hit the check mark, it'll keep its exposure locked to that spot. And so that allowed that shot to work without the camera adjusting for the brighter activity coming out of the rocket there. So that was a fun little project there. And one of the things producer Jake likes to do when we're using the larger camera is actually use this as a handle for the camcorder. He found it's more comfortable to have this on there. But this is a Manfrotto. They make really nice tripods, and it is super rugged here, and it's traveled all over the world, literally, with me on a bunch of different shoots. Now, the next item in my bag is something that I had in my bag for a while and took out because it wasn't big enough, but now because I'm doing GoPro work, it actually works out quite well. And this is a Litepanels LP Micro. This light is no longer manufactured. When it came out, it was the only game in town if you wanted something bright and power efficient. But now, of course, there's lots and lots of cheap LED lights out there. And although it doesn't project very far, when I have it on my GoPro here, just kind of holding it out in front of my face, it's adequate enough to illuminate me to the point where the GoPro image quality looks decent at 4K. And it proved itself out at the NASA press site following the launch of Artemis 1 when I gave my initial reactions at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And it just mounts up to my cold shoe here, and it's good to go. If you are standing further away from your camera, something this small is not going to cut it. It just kind of diffuses out and doesn't really have the reach. So you'll probably want a much larger light if you are looking to light yourself up from farther back. But for handheld, one-man banding it kind of stuff, this light works out great. This was very expensive back in its day. I can't remember what I paid for it, but it was, again, the only game in town, and it still works almost a decade and a half later, so I'm pretty happy with that one. Now I want to show you the computer that I use, and I bought this about 1.5 years ago and did a full review of it. This is my MacBook Pro. This is the 14-inch MacBook Pro, and it has the M1 Max on it. Now, typically when I buy a computer for my main production device, I buy the most high-end one I can afford, and then I keep it for as long as possible. So I generally keep my MacBooks 5 or 6 years or so. Producer Jake is using mine from about 6 years ago now. And this thing has been awesome because it's compact, it's very lightweight, It is extremely powerful. It can handle all the 4K 60 video that I throw at it. When I am here, this is my desktop computer. I have it docked with a Thunderbolt dock over there, and it's just fantastic. I can't say enough about it. The battery life is ridiculously good on this. It's almost like Apple has tapped into some multi-dimensional power source. I was editing 4K 60 video on battery out there, and it was barely making a mark on the overall battery life here. So this has been a really important part of my travel workflow, but also my workflow here at the house, and it is amazing that they've packed so much into a small package. I edit with Final Cut Pro, which does really well on the Apple hardware. I've been using Final Cut Pro for, again, over a decade now, and I'm a creature of habit, so it's a good pairing for what I do. Now, as far as power is concerned, I'm about to make a change, and one of the things that I like to do is not walk around with a lot of power adapters. So a couple of years ago, I got this in through the Amazon Vine program free of charge. This is a Satechi 75-watt power adapter. What it outputs is 60 watts out of its top USB Type-C port here, and then it will do 15 watts for a phone out of a secondary USB-C port. And it can deliver the full 75 by having 60 come out of this and 15 out of that. And then it has a couple of 2.4 amp USB-A ports on it. And this was working for me quite well for a number of years. The problem that I noticed, though, and this is why I went on battery for some of my editing out in the field, was that my MacBook Pro, when I was exporting video, was drawing too much power and causing this power supply to reset itself, and that was not a comforting thing with my expensive MacBook Pro. So I have decided to partially retire this or find a different use for it, and I instead went out and bought a new, more powerful, yet similar power supply from Anker. This is their GanPrime 747, and this is a 150 watt adapter. I believe it will do 100 watts max out of any of its ports, and then it kind of smartly distributes everything. And this has been working a lot better. Look how small it is. It feels like a solid rock here. It's really nicely constructed, and it's pretty compact. It's got the flip over plug here. My only issue with it is that it is a bit on the heavy side, and it's not ideal, I think, to have this thing like hanging off of an outlet. And they come with this really weird like suction cup thing that you're supposed to use to keep it in, kind of keep it in place when it's on the wall. So it just shows you they probably would have been better coming up with the model that they have here, which is plugging in a separate cable. This also gives you a little more length. So I think what I'm going to do is get just a relatively cheap extension cable to kind of turn this into how this one works, because I just like the flexibility of having a longer cable that wasn't tied to the wall. But I like the power capability of this. My MacBook Pro has been working fine with it, so I'm going to stick with this, but just kind of add another cable to the mix. Won't be all that much here to get it going. Now, on the battery side, this is kind of a fun thing that I just picked up recently. So I used to walk around with one of these Anker portable batteries that just had USB ports on it. But my Canon camera, for example, doesn't charge over USB. It has an AC power adapter. And I also have a pan tilt zoom camera that I'd like to plug in and play around with also. And that is also not running off of USB power. So this one has your USB-C port. It has two USB-A ports. And then check it out. It's got an AC outlet on it. Now, you can't plug in like your hairdryer or something. This is going to max out at 100 watts, so it's not going to give you all that much power, but for the stuff that I run, it's more than adequate. And what we'll do in a second is plug in my PTZ camera and see if its power supply will work with this. They rate this at 87 or so watt hours, and what that means, if I'm not mistaken, is that you can run it for about 87 hours if you're drawing only 1 watt, although that's what they rated at. What you might lose in heat and other inefficiencies, I'm sure, would bring that number down. And of course, most of the things that you're going to plug into this don't draw a watt. They draw a lot more than that. But still, I should be able to get maybe an hour or two or more on my PTZ camera when I'm out in the field with it if I don't have any other option for power. Now just to do a quick little demo of this, I'm going to put my bag down here for a second, and what I've got is the PTZ camera I was talking about. This came in free of charge a little while back from Bird Dog, and it's a camera that can be moved with like an Xbox controller or their remote control. And what I'm going to try here is just plugging it in with its power adapter. Now the max that this power adapter will draw is about 24 watts, but I don't think it will draw that much all the time. And unfortunately, my kilowatt has gone missing, so I can't measure it. But if you're interested in a more detailed review of this, I'm happy to do it. Now, just plugging things in is not enough here, so what we're going to do is turn on and press down the button here to power things on. And the AC light here is lit up now. And let's see if the camera enables itself here after we did that. There it goes. So it is powering the camera here. And like I said, I think if we were drawing even at its max of 24 watts, that we could easily get an hour or so out of this, if not more. So this is something I wanted to experiment a bit more with. But again, just having that AC adapter capability where I could plug anything in and charge it or use it is something that is worth the penalty of something larger and heavier that you have to walk around with. But it is very thin. It slips into my bag quite nicely. What's odd, though, is that although you'll get 100 watts out of the AC power here, it will only draw about 45 watts out of its USB Type-C. So that'll do it for what's in my production bag right now. And of course, this will change over time as new equipment comes out and I start looking at how those things can get better integrated into my workflow. But I'm having a lot of fun traveling again. I went 2 years, of course, with no travel, and I've probably now traveled in the last 3 months more than I have in the last 3 years. So it was fun to kind of revisit how I'm doing things and find some ways to make it better. The GoPro has definitely made my dispatch videos more fun to make and I think more fun for you to watch. So we're going to stick with that, I think, as we get ready for the big CES trip in Las Vegas in a few weeks. But by and large, I'm always on the lookout for ways to make this even better and try to keep everything inside of this bag. And if I can find a smaller bag, I'll do it. So stay tuned. More to come on this. Let me know if you have some comments about what you'd like to see go into this bag or come out of this bag down in the comments section. That is going to do it for now. Until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters Brian Parker, Chris Allegretta, Hot Sauce and Video Games, Logic KGR, Tom Albrecht, and Amda Brown. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to lon.tv/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit lon.tv/s.